Hello there, and welcome to the 10 Creative Commandments. These are practices that will help you thrive not only in this industry, but in everyday life. Let's get into it. One time for the one time. First things first, I just want to thank everyone who has watched the last video. This has been a blast for me, guys, and it's been really cool to see people, kind of tune in and give reception and encouragement. I think like the biggest note that I've gotten so far is that this is like the toned down version of me. And I'm like, have you seen the full video? Are you telling on yourself? Um, no, I mean I think that like that really just comes with comfort and all that. I was definitely trying to give like the like stoic model in the first one, but also just because I was nervous. So it feels really good to kind of have a platform that I built for myself where I can be myself. What a crazy concept. But anyway, on the last episode of 10 Creative Commandments, I talk a lot about loving yourself, right? And there's a reason why loving yourself is the first creative commandment because shoot, I mean, after that is where things can get a little rough. Things can get a little gray, a little sticky.
Okay.
You can only be as honest with yourself as much as you love yourself. Loving yourself is like being a really good friend, and a really good friend, a real one, is someone who can, you know, be honest with you and be transparent with you. Someone who can deliver things that you might not necessarily want to hear, but things that you need to hear. And that's really difficult. That's not only difficult to accept from other people, but especially ourselves, but at the same time, we can only grow as individuals by our community's capacity to hold us accountable to the things that we say, to the person that we are, and the person who we aspire to be. Love can take on many definitions, right? But for the sake of us all being on the same page, I'm going to use the one coined by Bell Hooks in her book All About Love, which I would high key recommend every single person read. It's helped me better understand how other generations, how other genders, how other people in general express love, receive love, all of that. She describes love as the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. She emphasizes self love as a foundation because, exactly my point, we cannot extend love to others in any supportive capacity until we can do it for ourselves. You have to be your best friend, and that looks like extending all things to yourself, right? Grace, praise, and now, as the second commandment, accountability. Accountability! Ability. The second creative commandment is to be honest with yourself and to tell the truth. Boom bop, boom bop, boom bop, boom bop, boom bop, boom bop, boom bop. Tell the truth. Do you guys remember that song from Empire? It's definitely copyrighted and I can't sample it because Fox. I feel like it'd be a perfect song for this intro. So I don't really know how to post links, but maybe open a new tab and just like get ready and feel the vibe for this creative commandment. It's going to be great. I think a good place to start with any creative endeavor, whether it's starting a career or really any creative undertaking of any capacity, is to consider all that it takes to actually do that thing. When I moved to Los Angeles 10 years ago, I knew that I wanted to make movies. I also had aspirations to model, but I was far less confident on that end of things. Crazy, right? There wasn't much of a plan per se, but I knew that there was going to be an organic structure of things depending on my experience and my comfort with all the things that go into making a film. I've always been a writer. I've always been a Dear Diary girly for sure. But I also studied literature for my undergrad. I was an English major, so I studied a lot of Gothic, a lot of mythic structure, a lot of allegories,
A few moments later.
narrative poetry, etc. I also studied film, but had only made one short film before I moved out here. It's on YouTube. And yeah, I figured I would go to film school, learn the craft, pay my dues, and build and learn and grow until I made it happen. And I did. If it all seems so simply put, it's because it was in my XY chromosome head. And, delusion is key. I at least knew myself well enough to know and to be honest with myself that my determination and my stubbornness would eventually manifest that perspective. But there were definitely a lot of thresholds where I could have been a bit more honest with myself at times, for sure. So now here are some practices that you can do that will help you be a bit more honest with yourself and to tell the truth more. Number one, learn what it takes to actually achieve your goals. Being honest with yourself means understanding the difference between wanting something and actually understanding what is required to achieve it. Many people fall in love with the outcome of things, but fail to observe the process, the step by step, if you will. Really try to study the path and not the destination. One thing that has been very helpful to me is seeking out people who I admire or want their career in focusing on not just their accomplishments, but the sacrifices and the setbacks and the routines and the years of hard work that have actually gotten them to where they are now. Commit to consistency over inspiration. Discipline is telling the truth about what needs to be done and whether or not you feel motivated to do so. What I have found is that the people who reach meaningful goals aren't the ones who have stayed inspired that entire time, but are the ones who are disciplined time in and time out and show up every day. When I decided that I wanted to make films, it wasn't enough to just be like, I want to be a filmmaker. I had to understand what it is that filmmakers do and what their day to days look like. I had to understand intimately the years of writing, the years of production work, networking, rejection, and persistence that was required. The more familiar I became with that perspective, the more honest I had to be with myself about the work that I was willing or unwilling to do. But that honesty really did become the foundation of every step forward in the process, whether it was filmmaking, modeling, or just being a decent human being. Now, I want to try and touch on something much deeper than just don't lie. For creatives, truth is often the source of great work. The further we move from the truth of our circumstances, our emotions, fears, abilities, and desires, the harder it becomes to create something that genuinely resonates with people. This is something that I struggle with too, because of how easy it is to slip into these bad delusions. I mean, after all, this life is one big delusion that we tell ourselves. So one would think maybe if I keep telling myself something, it will eventually come true. But just because you believe in your delusion doesn't mean everyone else around you will. And that's the point. If you were honest with yourself as you move about your desired delusion, you will always be led to authenticity. Number two, stop performing for yourself. Many of us lie to ourselves before we ever actually lie to another person. We tell ourselves we're working harder than we actually are. We pretend that we're okay when we're not. We claim that we want one thing when we actually secretly want another. For this one, I would ask yourself, what is true, even if I don't actually like it? So, for me, I guess this would pertain to my relationship with money and distraction. I struggle with balancing both because they are both things that can be temptations and also beneficial. But because I'm honest with myself about these things, it's easier to navigate them as I give myself grace and work on them. Really try to separate who you are from the image that you'd like others to see. Y'all, I don't know if you know this because I'm sitting in a chair, but I'm a big ass black man living in America. To many, there's only one version of that archetype that they either have experienced or feel comfortable around. I run into the same problem every day in many forms, but I think mostly it has to do with my zesty personality. I've just spent so much time suppressing parts of myself that don't necessarily fit the mold of your typical masculine black man. And you know what happened? I was mentally unwell and bored and broke. So, what's the point? To all my guys out there, masculinity is the most harmful, most boring performance that you will ever take on. My advice to you is to just be yourself and to leave them guessing.
Boy, just be yourself. If people don't like you if you're being yourself, fuck them.
I would also suggest giving yourself permission to acknowledge uncomfortable realities before trying to change them. I don't know, they say ignorance is bliss, but I'm inclined to disagree. I really think the more that you disregard other people's realities, the more vulnerable you leave yourself to things in the future. So get over yourself and live in your truth. Live in your truth, black men, white men, other. Number three, and this one is pretty straightforward. Keep promises to yourself. I think one of the more damaging forms of dishonesty is making commitments that you yourself never intended to honor. If you say you're going to write every day, write every day. If you miss the mark, just acknowledge it honestly instead of creating excuses for yourself. I think what's most important with this one is that you set realistic commitments and that you follow through with them consistently. Number four is to try and remember what actually cost you energy. Remember that a lie must be remembered, protected, adjusted, and defended. The truth simply is. Every false image, every excuse, every exaggeration, every attempt that we make to make it seem as if we're more successful than we are is just one more thing to carry. And it really is a slippery slope. I mean, eventually we spend so much energy maintaining that illusion that we don't end up having any energy to create. And that sucks. Number five is to create from what you actually already know to be truth. So many artists spend years trying to imitate what it is they think people actually want instead of expressing what they actually know. Some of the best advice that I got while in film school was to write what I know. As creatives, it is so much easier to create from our own circumstances, our own perspectives, our own fears and contradictions and questions that we have in life. When I was taking courses at LMU, looking back on my scripts now, I had a lot of existential questions about life, death, purpose,
2 hours later.
a lot of unresolved emotions with my mother's death, as well as my time as a collegiate athlete. Years later, I've now been able to form a genre of my own that is beautiful in itself because it's not something that anyone can take away from me. It's mine. I own it. Don't touch it. Ultimately, what I had to come to terms with was that I had to stop chasing authenticity and start practicing honesty and have trust, have faith that what is most personal usually becomes universal. Okay. Um yeah, let's wrap this up because I feel like I've been yapping forever. The creative industry, dare I say the world, is filled with pressures to perform, impress, and to maintain a illusion of success. But the greatest creatives aren't remembered because they're able to maintain that illusion. They are remembered because they found a way to tell the truth about themselves, about other people, and about the world around them. While the truth may be uncomfortable, it is very efficient. It not only frees your attention, but also your energy and your imagination. Lies require maintenance. The truth requires courage. And I promise you, courage is far less exhausting. Guys, thank you so much for spending some more time with me. It's been great to be able to sit here and yap to you in this comfy ass chair. I'll see you next time for number three. Peace. On the last episode, on the last on the last episode